thank you again for joining me on UK Health Radio. This is The Property Show. I'm Matt Turner, and today I'm going to be, I know last week I said I might be in Notting Hill or Richmond on the marketplace. We're actually going to be in Ealing. It is West London, so I didn't lie on that part, but yes, I'm going to be talking to a Sam Robbins, who has 14 years experience working in property. He's going to be telling us about this lovely part of West London with fantastic transport links, and which is also benefiting from the new Crossrail which will be coming through. He works for St Andrews estate agent, so that's later on in the show. The first part I talked to Philip Nash. He is a garden landscape designer. I really recommend that you get onto his website, which is nashgardendesign.co.uk, and have a look at some of the fantastic videos of the landscapes that he's produced for clients throughout the years. So you can have a look at that while I have a chat with him. Great, so today I'm joined by Philip Nash. Hi Philip, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, well take two. We just started talking and I forgot to press record. So for us this is going to be take two. For you listening, this is take one. So we're obviously in very good company today because a few hundred years ago, I don't know the exact date, but a certain John Nash helped design a lot of London, especially Regency architecture and Regent's Park actually as well. Which is, you know, you're Mr. Philip Nash, so no doubt you are related, I would say.
I'm yet to find that out. I've got my ancestry signed up, but I haven't yet taken it any further, so I'll keep you posted as and when I find out that I'm connected to anybody famous.
Well, while you're there, you can have a look if I'm related to Mr. Turner the painter, or I suppose more people these days know the singer Tina Turner, but I can't paint or sing at all, so I'm guessing I can't. But as opposed to yourself, you help people's outside spaces and gardens. So, I mean, you want to elaborate a little bit on how you help people with their outside space?
Well, it's a wide spectrum of outdoor spaces. They range from standard courtyards in London to rather larger gardens, obviously, but roof gardens and landscapes where you're more out into the counties and you get much larger areas to design. So it's very diverse. It's kept me very interested for the last 30 years. I think I've been doing this, which was so you've got never a career choice as such.
You've got green fingers. You've got green fingers. My mother probably would say that.
Well, I obviously must have. Yes, indeed, and I love bringing new plants into a new environment to transform it. So yes, I wouldn't say that I'm a horticulturist at all, but I'm certainly passionate about the plants I use.
No, for sure. So, I mean, obviously, you know, London, I know we'll talk a bit later on, you've actually moved out of London a little bit now, but the work that you do in London, anyone who's buying a property in London's, I guess, you know, is lucky to have outside space. So what would be the spaces you'd be working on, sort of roof terraces or small patios? I mean, it must be quite challenging to you know, in those compact spaces. What kind of?
I think small spaces are the most challenging, and if dare I mention at this moment, doing a Chelsea show garden back in 2004 was a small garden, and I think small spaces are the most challenging because their very nature being confined. You want to try and maximise the area for use, but not minimalise the space to take things up, so that you can't actually sit in it or enjoy it. So very challenging. But that said, you can do some amazing things in small spaces, and I feel that challenge is always something to embrace.
No, for sure. I mean, you know, you see people with their double basements with swimming pools. I suppose that's. I mean, do you get involved in pools and things like that? Or?
Definitely, yeah. Pools and water features that actually look like a swimming pool, subterranean, on the roof as well. So again, you can really bring these elements into quite an amazing sort of array of environments, whether it be in the city urban environment or out in the country, out on hillsides or overlooking the sea.
Yeah, and I guess probably your London clientele, if it was my garden in London, I'd be when it low maintenance. So that's kind of obviously something that you've got to take.
The buzzword, low maintenance. I think it's probably.
I'm not talking about my girlfriend, but I know she's listening right now. So
is there such a thing? I'm not talking about your girlfriend.
No, for sure. Yeah, there's a girlfriend.
The low maintenance.
Let's not go there. Let's not go there. No.
Low maintenance actually is probably up there as being, if not number one, certainly within the top three requests. We are looking for a low maintenance garden, and that's kind of almost like a holy grail, because obviously you're talking about plants, and what they're looking for is something that doesn't take a lot of upkeep and doesn't go wild or go crazy. I think that's kind of the first point. And something that's a bit like your home. You can hoover it around and it's kind of done, and it's kept quite clean and tidy. But then again, most of my clients will employ a gardener anyway to look after the garden once it's been developed. So whilst it might start off as being kind of quite high in their list of expectations and not in the design brief, ultimately it's how they're going to use the garden. What's their lifestyle? How do they interact with it? Is it an entertaining space? Have they got children? Is it a sort of crash pad for bachelors or girls? Who's going to use it? Who's going to entertain in it? Friends around. And there's a lot of demands on an outdoor space, as there are on an internal space, but you've only got the one. Usually, it's unless you've got a very, very large garden or a country garden where you can divide areas up. It's much more of a room that has multiple uses.
Yeah, no. So I suppose in that sense, I don't know. Do you prefer working on the larger spaces? Then you got more of a.
Do you know? I guess I do, because you've got more scope to do things. A larger roof terrace gives you more opportunities to do more, and quite often then you get challenges of budget. The larger the garden, the larger the budget. Stands to reason to a degree, but small gardens, because they have such high demand, and you want to furnish it as well as some of the interiors for my clients, then you can end up spending a lot of money on a relatively small space. So just because you've got a small space doesn't mean it's going to be cheap to do. It's not. Often it's per square metre exponentially a lot more.
Yeah, no, okay. So who is your sort of standard client then?
I don't think I've got one.
Okay.
Obviously, they have to have a relatively healthy income or good means in order to facilitate designing an outdoor space in the style that they extend their internal space effectively. So if you're into music, for example, you're going to have a wonderful stereo on the inside. Well, why does that not then extend outside? To put a fire feature outside is a lot more expensive than actually often inside, because the gas and the facilities are usually there. So you have to have relatively deep pockets for the type of work that I do. That said, I don't wish to be considered just completely exclusive. I do feel that it's a transferable. The ideas are transferable. You can still have the style and the look, but use cheaper materials. So it is a discipline that's open to a wide spectrum of society. It's not exclusive to just those that have. But my clients tend to be those that have.
Okay. No, for sure. With that, I suppose a few years ago, the buzzword of garden furniture was kind of gazebos or orangi. Would that be right? Is there one now? Is there a different type of furniture that people are going or should be looking at now, or you're recommending? Or?
I don't know really. Because I don't really look at the trendy magazines, garden magazines, or go to that many conferences and have a chat about who's doing what. I'm not the right person to say what is the trend. I can only say that I'm more interested in designing things that may become the trend.
Okay. Yeah.
I like to look forward.
You're a wolf, not a sheep. You're leading the way.
That's for others to say, perhaps. But I certainly are one that would like to put out there something that's different. And I feel from a point of view of exhibitions, of which Chelsea is Chelsea Flower Show is an exhibition, an opportunity to exhibit. I see that as like the Tate Modern for me, although it's not the same environment, but it's an opportunity to do something very contemporary on a world stage.
Yeah, no, I mean,
for that, it would need to be, for me, out there being modern as opposed to being traditional, pushing the boundaries. Exactly.
I mean, obviously, from looking at your website, the videos of your latest the projects that you've done, they were pretty fantastic. I actually thought they were computer generated, but they're actually real houses, aren't they? You know, I was thinking, I look out the window of my garden, thinking, whoops, there's some fantastic designs on there.
Well, don't forget, most people have looked out on their garden and saw the same thing.
Yeah.
The difference is that I've been able to come along and do that transformation, and so kind of you to be so generous in your observations. But it is for me, it is something that's very creative. Not something I necessarily set out to do. I didn't really have a career plan, if I'm honest. But,
so how did you get into the industry or this line of work?
I wanted to be a sculptor. In fact, at the time, I was a sculptor, and I felt that in the vein of Henry Moore, not taking his name in vain in any way, but his inspiration to me was that sculpture works so well into the landscape. It's not just something that's indoors in white galleries or is an indoor element. It's the beauty can be appreciated, if not more so, outside. So I took that as a note of, well, I will put my work out into the landscape. So that got my interest into landscapes. My tutor said I should be a film or set designer, which kind of went over my head at the time. But I guess he was right. His insight into actually what I do is set design. It's just an exterior set design. And so therefore I started designing gardens with that in mind. I then built those gardens physically with my own hands and with the help of others, and it expanded into teams of builders building my garden, teams of people working for me, which evolved then into me actually just doing the design work and finding garden builders out there in different parts of the country, because I couldn't possibly have an in-house team going around the country with all the projects that I was being offered at a particular time. So I decided to break up the band, as they say, and go solo, and got involved with garden builders, architects, main contractors, and that kind of elevated me into another strata of garden construction, I would say.
So it's not just the design, you're actually implementing the full product, you take it all the whole way through.
Yeah, originally I literally did. And I still am very much involved with the setting out and the planting aspect, being on site physically. But having done the design, I'm very much hands-on with the oversee of the installation. Whilst I don't have an in-house team, I'm there to be the eyes and ears for the client, but also I'm kind of self-interested. I've designed it. I want to make sure it's the best it can be. And often I'm not working with people I've worked with before, so I oversee the quality of their work, that it meets the standards that I expect from myself, and want to be able to hand over to the client.
Yeah. And I mean, how's your own garden? Are you one of these professionals that you're working on everyone else's so much that yours gets away, or is it,
I think that's true to say. I would say go back 20 years when we had our first property in Hampton Hill. We lived there 10 years, and I think in the 9th year the garden was completed. That became the inspiration of my first Chelsea garden, and then we sold it almost as the garden was completed, which much to my wife's angst. And then we went to an apartment which only had a terrace, sort of quite a small terrace. Yeah. So it was very much more containerised plants and not really a huge outdoor space. Although we made a lot of it, we maximised the use of it, and we had that sort of open indoor-outdoor feel. But it was not a large space. Now we've moved out to Devon. We live in a contemporary house. We rent it, And there's not a lot of outdoor garden.
Yes,
so,
I mean, actually on that, you are, there's it's more of a trend now, or there's a lot of people doing it, or maybe just got to that age where a lot of my friends are moving out of town. How you obviously from living in London to now, obviously you live in one of my favourite parts of the country in the southwest. How you finding living down there?
I would say it's inspirational in a sense.
Yeah, just clever. You've kind of gone from urban to rural, haven't you? Essentially, albeit where you were living in London was quite a rural town, I suppose, but now it's
living in West London. It's more of a series of villages that eventually sort of come to merge, and having lived in that part of London for quite a long time, the merging has become obvious over my experience. But I presume now, if you sort of moved into the area, you wouldn't know where one area stopped and started. But that's kind of so. The same thing as within Totnes, which is where I've now moved to. I'm still in an urban environment. It's just surrounded by countryside. There is a break between Totnes and the next nearest town, which, if you live in Richmond, you've got Richmond Park, you've got the riverside, you've got these areas of open space.
True. True.
So really, London is much more of a hub. Yeah. You have to, I still thought of, whilst being living on the outskirts of London, coming into London was really London living, and much of my work was in London as well. So I've only really transferred myself from one sort of urban environment pretty much to another at the moment. Okay. It's just that there's more natural environments around me.
No, it's definitely. I mean, we go to Cornwall every year for holiday. I mean, where you're living is Devon, which is the next county on, and for me, it's just one of the most beautiful parts of Great Britain for sure. Obviously, back to the topic. So, I mean, can you tell us about one of your most rewarding projects? Anything that one of your recent projects that you've done?
Yeah, I'm working on a project at the moment that's evolved over probably 2 or 3 years now. The design process itself took about 6 months to go through.
Wow. Okay.
And then during the actual construction, there was certain elements of evolution there as well. It's a Huff House, which is a German system build that some people may know from Grand Design Show.
Okay.
Where
if you can quickly explain what a Huff House is.
A Huff House, it's a very contemporary house which is all in kind of kit form.
Okay. Prefab kind of.
Yeah, but very high-end kit form. It's all made in a factory and brought by lorry or shipped sometimes. As in this case, it was on a barge across the River Thames to the site and craned into position. And I recommend anybody to sort of check these out. But it's the project that I'm involved in. It was the first of a new style that Huff have produced. They're known for their chalet style roofs, and this is a flat roof, very modern, a lot of glass, and it's that indoor-outdoor living which is very, very attractive. Being on the river, it's an incredible spot. You've almost got a 270-degree view of the river. It sweeps round.
Whereabouts was that? Sorry,
it's in Weybridge.
Okay, right, yeah.
And for me, what's been very exciting about it is it's brought a lot of elements that I've wanted to bring to a project, a singular project. They've evolved over the years, and I've managed to bring so many of them into this one, which has just been very exciting. And it's been a great opportunity to see it into reality, really, because a lot of these things are kind of visual ideas to start with, and some people might think, well, one garden is surely the same as the next. Well, clearly that isn't the case. And when you're looking at architectural features and you're bringing that architecture into the landscape, you're extending the language of the architecture, and that just makes it much more homogeneous, which sounds a bit arty-farty in a sense, but one of the things I love is bringing literally the architectural elements out into a landscape. So you repeat the theme almost, but then you soften it and introduce all the planting. It's like the house is extended into its environment rather than just being a house, and at the edge of the house it ends and you get a garden. Much better to have the elements of the house feel that they extend across the plot, across the site, and the language is there and the references are all there. And in this instance, I've got a floating terrace that is the house sits on, that is raised up because of the flood issues there, potential flood issues. And this project started with the clients buying a house, a plot, and then four or 5 metres of their garden getting washed away in the floods.
Oh, wow.
Of, I think it's 3 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to spend, right at the beginning, quite a considerable amount of money putting sheet piling in to reinstate their garden, or the footprint of the garden. So flooding is a very, very real consideration. And so the house is built up on stilts, effectively, mini stilts. It's a pile-driven foundation. And we've got this floating terrace that runs around. And when I say floating, because of the lighting, we light it at night. We underlight the terrace, so it appears to be, has a sort of floating effect at night. And also because it's raised, we have to have steps rising up to it. So I've had this wonderful opportunity to use very large pieces of stone set on steel supports in such a way that the stone appears to be unsupported. So again, that floating idea is the theme running through this project. Again, lighting at night adds to that floatiness effect, and the planting rises up around it, so it gives it almost envelops you in a sense, but as you go up to the house. And I think these opportunities of using large stone and floating effects have come of projects that I've done previously, little elements of projects I might have done 10, 12, 20 years ago even, now come into the fore, and it's been a great opportunity to, in one project, bring so many different elements together, and it's a joy for me to see that happen.
Sounds pretty rewarding, yeah. And that's finished now, is it?
It's not. We're actually back again right now. I'm back in London as we speak to site visit to see progress. Because I'm now remote from London, I plan my visits in London and visit projects and see how we're getting on, meet the clients, meet the contractors, discuss progress. I'm in touch with them anyway, remotely, as we would always be.
Design work you can, obviously in all that part, you can do remotely. It can be
we're digital age. It's very easy now.
You could be in Thailand doing it, I suppose, technically that part, couldn't you? But obviously you've got to be on site from time to time.
Well, the design process often can be done remotely, although I always see clients.
Yeah, sure.
But clearly the transfer of information and visuals is done remotely. My design assistant, she lives in South Africa now. She's been working for me for 10 years. Yeah. So there you've got a very clear idea of remote office. You can't get much more remote than living on the south coast of the Garden Route in South Africa. And on a day-to-day basis, we are developing the CAD designs for the gardens I'm designing.
Yeah. I suppose, once you've, let's say you did a project 5 years ago, gardens evolve, I assume. Obviously plants grow. You must be called back and, to reevaluate how the garden should develop, I suppose, or...
Yes, it's more about going back to photograph the evolution of the garden, more so than getting called back to emerge.
I didn't mean you were going to get called back and told off, you put this tree here, and it's
I go back to visit the gardens and the evolutions, a bit like Kevin MacLeod going back to revisit his Grand Design houses 5 years on. It's often for the same reason. It's to go and see the evolution of the ideas, the vision that was created and seed planted, almost, to use that euphemism, and see how it's grown, see how it's evolved. And I have to say, it's more often a pleasure than it is a chore, and it's certainly a wonderful experience for me to go back and see something that is grown, evolved and matured, and that is very, very rewarding, I have to say. I know gardens are temporary, actually. There are very few in our modern age of build and deconstruction and reconstruction. It's an evolution, and gardens have a lifespan, I guess, because people come in and they'll have a new vision, and a new designer will come in, and people change their environments. But Hopefully, mine will last for a bit longer than some. Let's put it that way.
No, for sure. I mean, what's your sort of geographical spread? I mean, you do work overseas as well, or is it?
Well, I do. I've had the good fortune to be invited to many parts of Europe and America. I've done a New York roof garden, split level roof garden apartment on 7th Avenue, which was a really exciting opportunity. I've worked in Spain. In fact, I'm working in Spain right now on a project which is a holistic centre. It will be a wellness centre. At the moment, it's a hollowed out farm building with a lot of acreage around it, but the clients are seeking to make it a wellness centre, and so that's a probably 5-year project. One exciting thing for me is they want an outdoor natural pool. They want the outdoor space is very, very important to them. You know, it's very conducive to sort of a calming environment. So we're looking at the elements of water, fire. Obviously, the expanse, the view is kind of like the air side of things, and you know, the earth. These kind of elements are all key pointers subliminally to my clients and to their clients they want to invite. So that's a fantastic opportunity. And the previous one I did was in Javier, overlooking the sea on a very extreme hillside.
It's some nice places, isn't it?
Yeah, and actually the hillside aspect is, I love it because it's so challenging, putting in the levels and getting all that to work. Quite often most gardens are quite flat, and so to add interest, it's nice to put some levels in, but when you've got a natural hillside, you've already got the levels, and whilst it's a challenge in terms of construction, it's also a challenge in terms of the aesthetic.
I mean, on that, do you have any sort of influences that have, helped your design ideas? Would you say you were kind of a modern, or I mean, what kind of?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that all my clients are seeking super contemporary gardens, although I get very excited about that as a prospect, and it's certainly something I aspire to. And architects of the future just are so inspirational. I think Zaha Hadid and Santiago Calatrava, just to name two, are visionary architects in my view, and they've created some extraordinary buildings and environments, pretty much Star Trek sort of style, and that's what's kind of inspired my 2008 Chelsea garden. That was a very kind of futuristic view of what gardens could be into their type of environment. So the future isn't so far away, it's actually with us, but yet it's in small kind of pockets. And Santiago's, I understand, is going to be building in London for the first time, not far from the Dome in Greenwich. There's £1 billion scheme that's been announced. So I'm incredibly excited to see how that will evolve. I don't have to travel so far to go and see something of genius. So there's my inspiration is very much contemporary, very modern style of architecture and environments. I don't believe that something modern is necessarily going to be something that doesn't have substance. Too many people, I think, sort of look back to the classic ways of building, the classic architecture. Well, we're surrounded by it. It's just refreshing to be surrounded by something very different and very inspiring.
Yeah, that's pretty definitely. It's refreshing. Yeah, I quite like. I mean, I can't really design it myself, but I'm quite like looking at very modern architecture. I suppose all the that's Valencia in Spain. There's a lot of nice buildings down there. I'm
certainly
really bad on names, so I won't try and quote anybody's who did it or what have you. Philip, that's been fantastic. I mean, your videos obviously are on your website, and I mean, how can people get in contact with you? What is your website?
Well, the website is www.nashgardendesign.co.uk.
Great.
On there you'll find courtyards, roof terraces, large open spaces and small, and I've had the good fortune to be invited to design a garden village, which is 1,000 homes.
Okay.
So it's a community project.
Yeah, yeah.
Which again is a lovely opportunity for me to express myself, but on a broader scale. It's not just for private individuals that often have quite a good disposable income. This is for a community of people. So it is a part of affordable housing, although that's a bit of a loose term these days. But genuinely, this scheme, I'm very pleased to have been invited to design, and I hope it becomes a reality.
So my opening mark saying that he must be related to the Mr. Nash. There is another Mr. Nash out there, and I'm talking to him. Yeah?
Indeed, maybe.
Fantastic. Well, if you obviously there's no geographical restraint for Philip. So if you are looking to improve your outside space, please do get in contact with Philip. All his details will be on the website. So thanks for today, Philip. That's great.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
You're listening to The Property Show with Matt Turner of Astute Property Search. If you have any property-related questions that you would like to ask Matt, you can email him at matt, with 2 T's, at astutepropertysearch.co.uk.
The Marketplace with Matt Turner of Astute Property Search, showcasing different areas of London to live or invest in. Okay, so I'm in Ealing Broadway to be specific today, and I'm with Sam Robbins of St Andrews Estate Agents. How are you, Sam?
Very well, thank you, Matt.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us today. So Sam's going to tell us about this area of West London. We've been a few other places in London for the marketplace. Sam, I mean, tell us a little bit about Ealing. What's who kind of buys around here? What's the demographic?
Well, it's the queen of the suburbs.
Okay.
Not far from London.
Are you just saying that because you work around here?
Definitely. It's a nice green place. We're 4 miles from the middle of London.
Yeah.
And only 8 miles from proper suburbia, green fields and hills and woods. So it's got a good mix of everything.
Yeah.
And we are really a family area. Although that's starting to change with the development of flats in Ealing. But that's our core market, families with 1 or 2 people working in London.
No, okay. So, I mean, is the schools around here quite good then?
Very good schools, very popular private schools, very good state schools. In fact, you're never far from one of those, and that's one of the reasons why I think people find themselves here, as well as not being too far away from everything.
Yeah, no, I suppose transport links here, are second to none, really. I mean, I guess the biggest thing everyone will know is Heathrow Airport. I mean, you can get there in 20 minutes, 25?
Yeah, tops, and that'll get quicker soon with Crossrail. But you've got road links there, train and bus links, and that's one of the most noted places that people move here for. The train is the obvious one, but more than you might imagine, cite Heathrow and other airports as a reason to come in west.
Yeah, no, okay. And I suppose getting into central London by the tube, that's pretty swift as well, yeah?
20 minutes, half an hour, depending on where you head to, and that'll come down to 10 minutes in a year or so.
Yeah, I think Crossrail's opening, is it? Yeah, I mean, it's designated for 2018, I think, is it?
That's the end of the year, I think, end of 2018, and that'll get you from here to Bond Street in 11 minutes.
Wow, okay. So you better get your credit card ready, because if you're married, but maybe you or your partner are going to be shopping quite a bit easier, no?
I'm sure she'll find it very convenient.
Probably best not to do it now. Christmas shopping's manic down that way. Obviously you mentioned family. So is it more houses then, rather than apartments, that you're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, our core market in terms of what we sell is 3 and 4 bedroom family homes, and we're quite well known at the top of the market. There are a number of pretty large double fronted Victorian villas and Edwardian houses in Ealing, and they've seen a real resurgence over the last few years in terms of being refurbished and kept as family homes.
What are they kind of? What's the ticket level for one of those? In sort of standard condition.
Standard conditions probably somewhere around £2.5 million
pounds. Yeah.
And they'll range. We agreed one this week at 2.1, and we agreed one at 3 million.
Okay.
So.
And is that market still quite buoyant? I mean, obviously stamp duty at that level's quite heavy.
I'm glad you mentioned that. It's on my list.
Yeah.
Stamp duty is causing a real problem at the top end of the market.
Yeah.
There's people handing out £250,000 in tax, 300,000 on some occasions.
Yeah, I suppose it depends if you own a property elsewhere as well, because then you've got that's going to be one extra 60,000, I suppose, at 2 million, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, we've got two clients at the moment paying almost 300,000 in land stamp duty tax.
Wow.
And that has affected the price that the house is sold for. So
Yeah.
it's penalised the seller.
Okay.
To a degree.
Yeah. Albeit that the seller might have bought it for about $1 million.
Yeah, listen, they haven't done too bad. And there's not too many complaints from them because they've got a buyer in this market, and
Yeah.
2 million plus transactions are roughly half what they were before, for us personally. What they were before the change in the tax. Last year there was 22. This year there's been 13
transactions.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's having an impact.
It's just a challenging market. So I suppose when you're taking those properties on, pricing it correctly, obviously it's more of a challenge to get it sold. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's critical to price correctly. We have to accept that it will take a bit of time now for a house like that to sell. And a lot of that depends on when they bought it and how much money is in it and what they're doing now.
Yeah.
In terms of the delta on their next move.
Sure.
If they're moving down and it's the last move, then there's a degree of reluctance. They're reluctant there to start chipping away at the price. If they're moving up a market, then they're going to find some room there. So plenty of work for us to do through chains. Anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, for sure. Well, chains is actually a thing. Because I mean, most of my experience is more central London, where you might get one personnel, a chain in there. But I mean, what's the standard chain out here?
It's not uncommon to be dealing with 3 or 4 links in a chain.
Okay, and just to explain a chain quickly, some listeners might not actually know what that is.
The basic principle of having buyers and sellers creating a link between each other and then a chain of people.
Yeah.
So we'll usually have an unencumbered buyer at the bottom, right up to an empty house or somebody who's moving out.
Yeah.
And then 3 or 4 houses forming a chain isn't uncommon for us here.
People buying and selling at the same time, and which obviously probably causes you a lot of headaches, because I mean, one person pulls out, then you're back to square one, and it's holding it all together, dealing with people's emotions. Yeah?
The longer the chain, the greater the risk. And perversely, the closer we get to it happening, the more stressed everybody gets. And that is something after 14 years I've never understood. Yeah, no, it's a tough one. I mean, I'm on the phone sometimes with clients, and my girlfriend says to me, "Are you actually selling property?" Because you end up talking to the client about their job, their life. I mean, do you feel like a therapist sometimes? If I put the invoice in for the therapy, listen, I'll be on the beach now. I think we spend a lot of time helping people through major parts of their life. The house buying and selling process is usually triggered by something else, either work or family, schools, and they're stressful things on their own. So to put this on top, we need to empathise and put ourselves in their shoes to make sure the journey is as good as possible. I think it's well put, actually. I mean, a lot of people, obviously it's one of the hated industries up there with traffic wardens and politicians, and I get it, but and a lot of people think, well, it's quite easy, just list it on a web portal and that's it. But there's so much behind a property transaction, which obviously in your experience I think as estate agents, our value is going up. I think there is we're being disrupted by various models, but really all they do is market, whereas we're attached to the person for the whole journey, and that journey doesn't always happen first time round. So I've spent 10 or 12 years with families, moving them into flats, then them having children and moving them again for the children to go to secondary school. And that's the sort of relationships that we build to enable us to give trusted advice. No, definitely. I mean, with that, I mean, is there, I mean, a lot of my friends who
live in central London, they're starting to move out of town. I mean, is that a trend for people moving into Ealing? Is this kind of designated as out of town, or?
Yeah, I think there is a mass migration from London anyway in certain generations. I can only comment on West London, but it's certainly a popular route. And I, in previous places of work, which are slightly further west, I think the migration tends to carry on down the A40, probably in search of value.
So out towards the west of where's the A40 go towards?
Keep coming towards. Yeah, I mean the A40 heads out towards Beaconsfield, by Wickham, and that sort of way.
Okay.
And naturally, as you go through the postcodes, you tend to get slightly more for your money.
Yeah.
So I've worked in both areas, and it's definitely historically a migration west.
Yeah.
Even for people from Ealing already, up to places like Beaconsfield and Gerrards Cross, some big piles out there for similar money. So you ditch your Mews garden and end up with acres.
Yeah.
And at certain periods of people's life, it seems to be attractive.
Yeah. No. Okay. Well, I mean, it's obviously the contrary to what you said you've done for your actual work. You started your estate agency. Well, your work in the industry. Let's put it that way. Out a bit further, and you're coming in. Yeah.
That's right. I assume I'm a salmon.
You're going against the tide.
Coming upstream. And I've been lured into the charms of Ealing and the market here, and some of the the different ways of working, which has been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on Crossrail. It's obviously become quite a big buzzword for a lot of investors, and be it Ealing being, well, it's obviously got fantastic transport links. I mean, it's on the central and the district already.
Central district, Piccadilly.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah.
South Ealing.
So it's been a bit greedy by joining the Crossrail.
Mainline trains too. So you'll be hard pressed to find somewhere with better trains in a couple of years' time.
Yeah. So what I mean, is that really Crossrail boosted prices around here? Have you seen any?
I think pre-Crossrail.
Yeah.
And around the time of it being confirmed, I can see from analysing the data trends an increase in price, a pretty big increase in price around that time. That seems to have petered out a bit and has perhaps topped out. And with the additional stamp duty payable by investors now, combined with other things making people unsure in general, I think we've seen that fire somewhat doused for a little while.
Yeah.
Although we will probably find that when it's operational, there will be owner-occupiers
in reality
who will come back and increase demand in that area.
So what does let's say a one-bedroom flat cost around Ealing?
At the moment, a one-bedroom flat in W5, which is prime Ealing, is early 400s. Okay. Somewhere between 4 and 425.
And that'd be what, 45 square metres?
Probably a bit smaller.
A bit smaller, yeah.
Yeah,
they're getting
probably.
Smaller,
it might be a bit tighter than that.
Yeah.
But the range can be quite large on the prices, but the average is early 400.
Surely on your details you'll put compact. I wouldn't say tighter, would it?
Bijou.
Bijou, there you go. No, they're fun. I mean, I bought a few one beds in my time, and they're sort of out of the 1970s block, and some of those are 65, 70 square metres, which I guess that a developer's going to make that a 3-bed these days, no?
Yeah, somebody asked me why a 60s built flat was so expensive the other day, because it's not renowned for its architecture that era, but it's the size, and they're generally pretty big, aren't they?
Yeah, no, for sure. So obviously last week in the budget, the Chancellor's Exchequer has relaxed stamp duty for first-time buyers. I mean, can you see that? What effect do you think that's going to have going forward?
We've seen transactions with first-time buyers declining every month for the last 8. Bank of England have reported that there's more activity already. I'm not sure how they've.
Pretty swift, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they've realised that. I think there's a bigger problem than the stamp duty because around the country that change won't make a difference to some people.
Yeah.
The property values, early 100,000s in the north, they're paying £24 stamp duty.
Yeah.
It's not going to make any difference.
Okay, so it's just a meal out maybe.
Yeah, I think, and obviously it's regional and salaries are different, but I don't think that was the problem. I think the issue, certainly in London, is that house prices are 14.5 times earnings.
Yeah.
So affordability is an issue, and I think we've reached a point where buyers are saying we can't, and then that dream is being put aside, and money's being spent on other things, enjoyment.
Yeah.
And the idea of owning a home has been shelved for a lot of people. So I think we've got some way to go before people put house buying back as a realistic.
So do you think, I mean, for the younger generation now then, renting's just going to be the way ahead? It's kind of like the norm?
I think they're so despondent with house prices and the various schemes that have been offered. I've had experience of them. I don't think are necessarily the best way forward. I haven't got an answer, so I'm not fully critical. But I think we're losing a generation whose aspirations to own a home have been dented by the unlikeliness of it. So I think really we need to find a way to have affordability. But given the way things are going at the moment in terms of supply and demand, we're perhaps heading towards that.
Yeah.
Certainly bringing the two closer together over the next year or so.
There's more properties on the market than people looking, you're saying?
Certainly. I mean, Ealing is over 50% flats anyway.
Okay.
If we look at a first-time buyer market, and there's a lot of them on the market, more property than buyers, and that will bring the prices of those closer to the buyers' expectations and ability over a period of time.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, I mean, probably a £400,000 flat for a lot of people in London. I guess, it's relative. Probably is a bit more affordable, I would say, and maybe that, what they're saving on that £5,000, they're going to save. Yeah. I kind of think it might, in the new year, people make decisions. It might sort of ignite the market a little bit at that end.
Yeah, I mean, my hopes are that we come back. Christmas is always a great break.
Yeah.
It seems to me that people find it easier to accept something when it was last year.
Okay.
I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
When you say it was last month or last week, it doesn't have any weight. And when you say, well, no, that was last year, that seems to hold weight with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think when we get into the new year, first-time buyers come to the market, they realise they're saving, perhaps prices are coming towards them as well, and that combination will bring some demand.
Yeah, so on New Year's Eve they make their resolution to...
Fingers crossed, I'll be in there on the first working day, ready for them to ring.
Very, very good. I mean, you've obviously mentioned that's a challenge to the property market as a whole. I mean, is there anything to the property system that you would like changed at all?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of estate agents complain about solicitors and that conveyancing process.
Well, I think without labouring on the point, tax is the real issue.
Okay.
The 3% tax, in my opinion, and this came from Gary Sinton actually, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
I think investors provide a service that's required. So to take them out of the market is a short-term view, I think.
Yeah.
I think the tax on investment properties should taper out over the time you provide the service. So you provide a rental property to the market. If you sell it quickly because you've made a capital gain, you should be taxed quite heavily.
Okay, yeah.
If you provide that property as a home for somebody for 15 years, then perhaps your tax selling it at the end should be much less.
Yeah, I think they have a similar system in France actually. To that.
Really?
When you're buying, I think there's no capital gains after 15 years, but if you do a quick, you sell it. I think I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure there's something along those lines.
So I think that would help everybody.
Yeah.
And then I think perhaps taxing people on the sales of their homes rather than the purchases.
Okay.
Because while we're taxing people who aspire to move up the market, we're going to stop them. And if you've got a £250,000 tax bill on your purchase, it's going to put you off.
Yeah.
If you've got a 200 grand bill on your sale and you're 50 grand better off, and you might be more inclined to move.
Yeah, I suppose you already go to the gain, the equity, you've got it in there to do
and it also means the people at the top of the market in these big houses, they have, as you say, the asset ability that when they move down the market, they can pay the tax.
Yeah.
They've made all the money. The taxing the people at the bottom without it seems silly when you're not really taxing the people at the top.
Yeah. Okay.
So
so it's definitely a good debate.
I think that would get more houses available, more movement, and make it better for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds logical. I suppose in many ways the people who are making decisions, they're probably the ones who've got the big houses and they wouldn't like it.
Find out who I should send it to.
Yeah. For sure.
But in other bits of the process, you mentioned conveyancing there.
Yeah.
I've got no problem with the conveyancing process. It's one of my favourite parts of the job.
Right. Okay.
I made a point of learning it as best I could, inside out, and that was early on. And a lot of solicitors recognised that if you ask the right questions and you're interested, they'll engage with you.
Sure.
Because there's a big difference between a solicitor and a estate agent.
Sure. Yeah. That was a love-hate thing.
So they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And then if you're on the right side, you'll quickly learn, and then you can really make the process smoother for everybody.
Yeah, so you're not just phoning up saying, have we exchanged yet?
Yeah, or can I have an update as a favourite?
Yeah, okay,
that goes down like a lead balloon. But two good solicitors and a good estate agent, we completed on a transaction in 23 days last month.
Okay, yeah.
From start to finish. It was cash, it was easier. But we had one the month before that took 5 weeks with a chain of 4, mortgages on everybody, motivated buyers and sellers, and a clear agenda set from the beginning. And we set ourselves 6, but we did it in 5.
Well, that's really good with 4 parties. Well, I guess that's 5 parties involved, is it?
Yeah.
So that's pretty.
But that came from clear agenda setting, knowing the process inside out. And great solicitors on board as well.
I think that's very true, actually. When you get a property under offer, a lot of buyers and sellers, you see it, they relax, they think they've made it already. But really, I say to my clients, now's the challenge. This is the hardest part of the process, quite often.
The hardest, most stressful part. Will you leave the washing machine?
Yeah, that's it, yeah. The fiction fitted is the dreaded... What, you're not leaving it? What? Yeah. So St Andrews, I've got to say, I really like your sailboards. I mean, I don't like sailboards per se, but they're kind of, I don't know if it's retro or they're kind of, I mean, how would you describe it? I mean, they really do stand out.
I think retro nails it. I think they're coming back into fashion. We had them so long, they're coming back round.
Okay.
But I think that's something we want to keep. Is recognising our heritage. We've been in Ealing 30 odd years.
Yeah.
Whilst trying to keep up with some of the digital advances that we can use to benefit our clients. So not all of it's brilliant, but I think there's a room for a blend.
The old and the new. So in many ways, you're like a period building with a brand new interior.
That is us, and that's what everybody wants, I believe.
For sure. I've actually done one transaction with your company on your letting side, and having dealt with probably about 20 different agents, you were far the best, and we did actually do the transaction through you guys. So it was. That's good to hear. Definitely can recommend St Andrews. Going forward, so anything. Got any good transactions? Any good properties on the market at the moment that we should know about?
Yeah, we've got a stunning house in Kenilworth Road, which is Ealing W5, and it's been refurbished by the current clients to a pretty amazing standard. Steam showers and saunas and what have you.
I spent a few pennies on it. Yeah.
Spent a few bob, yeah, and we found them. They weren't looking to move. But they said, if you ever get one of these, let us know. And we got one of those. We found them a big double-fronted detached house with all the space they wanted, and we're subsequently marketing theirs. So it's a very good house to look at in Kenilworth Road.
And what's that on the market for?
That's on the market for 235. A snip at 235.
Only. Yeah.
Only.
I mean, a lot of these, are they being carved up, some of these? It's quite rare to find. Are they being carved up into flats?
Yeah, there was a long period of these houses being split up because they lend themselves so well to it. But there is also a trend emerging for people to try and retain them as family homes. Okay. Like this one, and it's really nice to see, actually.
It does look like a stunning red bricks, turn of the century?
Yeah, and it has parking.
Last century, I suppose, yeah.
But it's a brilliant house. I mean, the spec is not something you see every day.
Great. I always say to agents that the part of the deal doing this show is that you let me stay there for a weekend. That one looks amazing.
Absolutely fine. But I'm not staying there this weekend, so you can borrow it.
Very good. All right. Well, that's great. Well, thanks, Sam, for talking us through Ealing. All Sam's details will be on the website. But you can pop your how can people get in contact with you? Your website is standandrews.com.
And my email address and telephone numbers are on there if you want to get in contact.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sam. And come back and speak to you soon.
Cheers, Matt. All the best.
So thank you again for tuning in today, and thanks to our guests Philip Nash and Sam Robbins for their part in making this show. So next week, I really hope I am going to be in Notting Hill. I interview an estate agent there, and also I've got one of my previous clients that has agreed to come on and talk about why they actually chose to buy in the Notting Hill Holland Park area. So until next week, that's Matt Turner, The Property Show on UK Health Radio.